Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm making this video. I might not have the time to do a chart breakdown today, like an hour-long session. Um, so I'm making this video right now just in case I don't, and then I can just upload it later and share it with you guys. If so, then um, if I do have time, then I will get you obviously the hour-long session that we usually do on Sundays. But I just want to make sure you guys kind of have an idea of what we're looking at for the week. And then obviously use, you guys should be using these chart breakdowns as a way to kind of compare your own chart to see if you're kind of coming up with the same bias. Um, because again, if you can figure out where the bias is at the beginning of each week without me telling you, and then we obviously have spent a good month um, working on the entries that we would look at how to break it down to an entry. So once you can kind of put those two things together, then you're actually in really good shape. So your weekly analysis should look like basically what I'm doing on these calls without, obviously me being there, but breaking it down step by step, weekly, daily, 4 hourly, 1 hourly, right? And then, looking for an opportunity to get our power of three set up throughout the week. So the accumulation, manipulation, and distribution, right? And so pulling back and basically each day, each week, you should be doing that for the week. And then each day within that week, you should be looking for your power of three setup inside of that. So um if we look at the dollar index, so I don't know if you guys watched the breakdown um for the indices that I did. This is going to primarily just be the Forex one. So I'm just going to break down some Forex pairs. And so if you look at the dollar index, obviously I called this out in the video yesterday for the Trading Nut podcast. But there's a couple of things that's going on. So up until this month, we had traded for looking at dollar index in the monthly time frame. We had been in this consolidated range. You can see we swept sell side liquidity there, traded into this imbalance. So even inside of the imbalance, we know there's going to be sell side inside of the imbalance. We also know that there's going to be sell side underneath these lows. And so over the past couple months, every day while we've watched the dollar index since June or July, this is really what's been going on in the bigger picture. Trading into this gap, we got sell side in here, we accumulated, right? And then we took out the sell side underneath these lows. So the market is always creating liquidity, right? And then matching buyers and sellers. And that's another example of this right here. So um, it's obviously multi-layered stuff going on. So up until then, we had traded up into this imbalance right here. At this point, we kind of expected us to reject out of this. And I guess if you guys remember, I had mentioned this a couple of times that I kind of expected to see price trade out of this imbalance at some point in time. I was looking at this long-term objective, maybe, and that was kind of the range where I thought it was going to happen at. But you can kind of see here that we've pulled back a little bit sooner than expected, which makes sense because we've had pretty much 1, 2, 3 months of bullish action. But we also traded back down into this imbalance here. So if you look from this low to this high, this is another imbalance in the monthly time frame. And so right now, we're kind of in the grand scheme of things in dollar index, we're just trying to see if we're going to trade higher. I expect some type of pullback out of this range. I'm looking at these highs in particular in the grand scheme of things. But if we trade, if we respect this fair value gap, then we can see probably price continue to go higher. The minute price breaks below this and kind of retests it, then we're probably looking at an inverse situation, and that'll probably signal a major reversal in the market. Again, I know I've been calling this out for a few weeks. I wanted to see the market go higher. I just geopolitically, there's a lot of stuff that we're in right now that's really not going to lend itself to a lower dollar. And that's just kind of like grand level macro stuff. Which obviously I don't pay too much attention to, but just like there's pretty much been no change in a political climate, during this run up that we are in now. So um on the weekly perspective, so again, I wanted to call out a couple of levels, right? So we talked about this consequent encroachment level, right? And we have pretty much respected this. I thought that we potentially might have gotten a um a break when we got the break above this on the daily level. I kind of thought that maybe we would we would continue to go a little bit higher, but immediately it didn't even give us the chance to buy. And the next day, we gapped down and then started taking out sell side. So this could be, in the grand scheme of things, this could just be consolidation, right? Manipulation, and then distribution to go back up. And I think that's kind of the big play. So even that when we talk about our forex pairs, when we talk about the power of three, consolidation, manipulation, distribution, or accumulation, manipulation, distribution, consolidation, and accumulation are kind of like the same thing, acquiring contracts, right? We know that there's going to be sell side built up above this, and I'm sorry, buy side built up above this and sell side built up below this, right? Anytime we see a consolidation. And so when we see this initial breakout, um, we know that once we took out these lows right here, we just grabbed a bunch of sell side. And so the question that I have for the markets this week is this going to be the extended run out down and we're going to accumulate, manipulate, and distribute and go back up? Or is this the beginning of a reversal trend? And I think long term, I think we're still bullish, right? And so what I called out in the video is I wanted to see price pull back and trade down to a level where we knew there's going to be a sell side, and then look to kind of pair it up with another action to go up higher. So what I mean by that is for this week, I want to see price pull back, give us some type of play back into the imbalance that was formed, this huge imbalance that was formed on the daily time frame. So if we go to the 4-hour time frame, there's a fair value gap here. And so I want to see price trade back into this range to start the week off and then kind of give us an opportunity to go short. If we just open the week up and just go straight flat without trading up, then that might be a good indication that this whole run was just manipulation, to get traders thinking short before they go long. If you think about it, we've had pretty much, like I said, again, 3 months of just straight bullish action. So, there's we're running to a level, but we also have to accumulate sellers to go back up, right? And so the only way we go down, the only way we go up is if we go down first. The only way we go down is if we go up first, right? We got to accumulate and manipulate before we distribute. And so really, as we see this huge run down, we have to ask ourselves, where's targets where we're looking for? Well, we noticed a couple of things. I didn't call this out in the video, but there is a huge volume imbalance right here, right, where we're currently sitting at. There is another one on the weekly time frame. If you look at this weekly time frame, you can see that volume imbalance right there, that gray level, and it's at 103.99. And then obviously this fair value gap right here. Some sell side underneath here. These lows are pretty smooth. Anytime you see smooth relative equal lows like this, could be the opportunity for it to get tapped. But there's a lot of liquidity markers in this zone that just kind of lend itself to the idea that price isn't going to just break through all of these. And so if that's the case, then I'd like to see a pullback into that 4-hour fair value gap that we outlined there, and then trade lower to here. And then this will be kind of like the consolidation or the accumulation, manipulation to here, and then probably distribution to continue to go back up. I don't think we're quite at the point where we're going to reverse in the market majorly yet. Technically, I mean, these lows are very flat. There's not really a break of structure because there was no low really being formed, to be honest. It's just kind of even and flat and consolidation. So consolidation, manipulation, and then kind of going back up. And our long-term target is obviously this fair value gap. If you look, here, we actually traded right below it. We didn't go back and touch it, which is an interesting, it's kind of like what I talk about when we see like relative equal highs right above a fair value gap or relative equal lows right below a fair value gap. That's kind of what I'm saying is the market is kind of drawing liquidity. Right now, everybody's starting to think short. We had this huge day. We had this huge news release. The whole week was bearish. Everybody in the market is thinking short. And so I guess, again, the long-term target is this dollar index high right here at 107.91. That's kind of what I think price could potentially draw back to if we are, again, manipulating traders to go short just to distribute them to go higher. Where my idea will fall apart is if we start to really take out, I'd say like if we start trading below this volume imbalance, that fair value gap, and and even more so those relative equal lows, once we kind of get to that area, then I'm probably gonna start thinking short. Um, yeah, definitely if we trade below this volume imbalance on the weekly. I would also note uh this consequent encroachment level of this wick just because it's a very prominent wick. And yeah, so that will be kind of be like my fail safe on my trading idea that we think price is going to go, you know, the overall trend will continue going lower if it kind of breaks past that point. Um, so if I go to the weekly time frame, it doesn't look right. Yeah, it's uh so if I go to the weekly time frame or go back down to the daily really quickly, yeah, you can see that consequent encroachment is just under that fair value gap too. So there's just a lot of liquidity markers that are kind of lending itself to the idea that price isn't going to break through all three of these. So I think down here is where we're looking at worst case scenario for a price reversal to continue to go back up. So again, uh, long term consolidation or accumulation, manipulation, distribution, right? I think is could be the play. And so for that's a long-term play. For this week, what I'm specifically looking at is for price to get to these levels. And so I want to see price pull back again and then kind of keep going lower. And in this range is where I'll probably look to see if we get a break of structure or some opportunity to go long. So you're constantly juggling your long-term trends with your short-term trends. So we know long-term we're bullish. And then so in this case, we're just consolidating and accumulating, manipulating distribution. And power three is the word of the day today. So we just kind of have to play with that. And so making sure that our every trade we take up kind of lines up with our shorter term bias. So it's like we have daily objectives, weekly objectives, and then like week, monthly, quarterly objectives too. So this is kind of what makes it confusing. So this is why I do these videos just so you can kind of get a breakdown of where we think price will go for this week specifically. So for this week, I'm only looking here. Like I want to see price trade back up and go here. And if it trades back up and breaks this and trades higher past these highs, okay, cool. We're back in buys again. And this was just the entire, the extent of our manipulation. But ultimately, I think we're still going to end up here. And the question is, are we just going to turn around right here where we're at, or are we going to trade a little bit lower, grab sell side here, sell side in the volume imbalance, and then go higher. So that's all we're looking for. And the cool thing about the markets is that usually it will only give you one or two of those options. Like we'll wake up and price will just have traded all the way down here, right? Or we'll come to the terminal on Monday and price will just have traded all the way back up and broke these highs, right? And so it'll usually only give us one option of those scenarios. And so it's just the reason that I'm giving multiples because we don't know because the market's not open yet. But that's what I'm prepared for. I'm either looking to buy down here or I probably will just miss the trade this week if price just goes back up from where we're existing at and takes out these highs. But again, so for this week specifically, I'm holding a bearish bias. Long term, I'm still bullish, but for this week, I want to see price trade up to trade down to here so we can ultimately look to potentially buy in here to go back up. So same thing with euro. Um, I know that was really long on dollar index, but got to give a lot of context when there's multiple things going on in the market at the same time. So if we look at the weekly time frame on euro, a lot of stuff has happened. I can get rid of some of this stuff. Um, and so last week, obviously, it was FOMC and NFP. I told everybody I thought kind of FOMC was going to be messy this week just because there wasn't a whole lot of movement this week. And so coming into the week, what we wanted to see is price continue to trade lower, kind of respect this fair value gap. It traded all the way up through this fair value gap to the consequent encroachment level of this wick right here, right? Directly on that 50%. And so I thought, okay, cool. And then once we hit that, we traded, consequently down. So kind of figured that we would, continue on with the downtrend after that. And we had respected this fair value gap on the weekly time frame. Uh, right. So that SIBI, or that sell side imbalance, buy side inefficiency. Right. And so I wanted to see price continue to trade lower and really go towards this fair value gap that we have been calling out for the past I don't know, few weeks, months. I mean, this is kind of, I thought we were going to trade down here for our target. Um, and so we didn't get that though. We ended up getting a huge power by news, power by um, the NFP FOMC events last week. Saw this huge trend. So we have to ask ourselves now, okay, where's price running to? So I will be looking for buy opportunities, just kind of like opposite of the dollar. So bear, like a bullish opportunities. I'm not 100% convinced that this is the trend, the overall trend. Here's why. If you look at the monthly time frame, a couple of things stick out. Um, so here we traded into this imbalance here, right, a few months ago. We broke structure on this low, and then we formed a fair value gap. And I can't, there's a lot of stuff here that's, let me see if I can get all this out the way. Just so this is a little clearer for everybody. Okay, so we traded into this imbalance right here. Let me get rid of this too. That was from this low to this high, right? So everybody can see traded up here, grabbed liquidity in this volume imbalance, broke structure by taking out this swing low. This is very similar to our setup that we look for every day at 8:30 on, NASDAQ or Euro, New York session, that type of thing. Right. So we grabbed liquidity, took out the buy side over here, we traded back into this zone, broke structure, and formed a fair value gap. And I think what's happening here is, in the long term, this move up is really just that news release that we had on Friday was really just trading back into this imbalance here. And so we'll see if it respects it. But I ultimately don't see long term, I don't see euro continuing to go up and make highs, right? Just like I don't, in long term, I don't see dollar continuing to go down and make lows. I think we're just getting a pullback into those zones. And you can see that on euro and dollar, we both traded into a monthly fair value gap, right? And so it's the same thing that we talk about all the time. Um, with trading into a fair value gap, we want to see prices sell off over time. And so that's kind of a long-term projection. I don't know if that's going to happen this month. Each one of these candles represents a month. So over the next couple of months, I think we're going to break, and continue to attack the lows that we formed here and ultimately trade into that monthly fair value gap. So long term, I'm still bearish on dollar. Still bearish. Um, this is probably gonna take a couple months to play out. This could be a October trade in here, pull back some, then November. I'm sorry, November. It is November. November trade in here, then December and January make lows. Like this might not even get touched till early next year. Or it could just happen all this month, right? It could be just a rapid rejection and retracement, or December could be the month where we push down just crazy. There could be a huge news event that causes price to go down. I wouldn't be surprised if there's something that occurs in the next month that causes price to just tank, right? And so if you go down to the weekly time frame, that monthly fair value gap, this is the zone that we're in. So we kind of have to ask ourselves, within this zone, where's the liquidity, right? Well, we know that there is buy side sitting over this high, right? And we know that we just grabbed buy side over this particular high. And these are weekly time frame candles. So each one of these candles is a high of a previous week. So we grabbed this high of this week right here. Um, and what I would like to see going into this next week is price. We just formed a huge imbalance on dollar. I would like to see price trade somewhere back into this fair value gap that we formed here. It's a very small one. So we formed this fair value gap with the closing on Friday on at 1.0718. I want to see price respect this and then potentially attack the highs of this. So we're sitting inside this fair value gap, obviously, this big monthly fair value gap, this entire red shaded area. But I want to see price. Oops. Wait. Oh, so we know the whole zone we're sitting in right now is just a huge monthly fair value gap. So all the price action that's happening here is just noise to make that whole big monthly fair value gap play out. And so we can't obviously we can't trade that. I mean, we could trade that gap. We could just enter right now short and then put the stop loss above the high. But that would be a huge stop loss, be a huge risk, right? Even with a small position. Um, so right now we're just kind of looking at what we can do in the meantime, intraday. And so that there's a huge imbalance here that begins at 1.0718 right there. And then we also have a situation down here. I wouldn't be surprised if we get a play back to this range and attack the high of last week. I'm sorry, the high, trade all the way up to this high right here, which is at 1.068. So we went on the daily time frame. This high right here. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get a pullback into that zone, just a slight pullback. Into this zone. We could go as deep as this breaker right here, or this high right here, and then do something like that. So I'm looking at this zone right here, and then if price doesn't break past here, I'm really specifically looking at this high and see if we can get a play back into that zone um, to go long at 1.0679. So like I'm not calling big plays for this week because ultimately I think we're kind of in a series of pullbacks on higher time frame trends, the weekly, the daily, just so we can continue to go lower. I'm not a huge proponent of prices of euro or these pairs with USD being second, continuing to go longer. So I'm just calling very small, very, very small like moves this week. If we do take out this high right here at, I'm just gonna make this liquidity. We do take out this high at 1.068, then I could see prices potentially rolling over here. This will be the top end of that monthly fair value gap. So we could be looking to see prices go take out there. Um, Again, I want to see a pullback and I want to see prices continue to go bullish until we hit this region and then uh, kind of look for stuff there. If we just completely roll over, again, this is the idea of accumulation, manipulation, distribution, right? Accumulating, manipulating, distribution, which is inside of a bigger, again, fair value gap where we think price is going to fall over. When we hit this top end of this fair value gap, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a rapid rejection. Um, because if we go back to the monthly time frame, we kind of bring this to the hour time frame so we can kind of see where we're at. Yeah, this will be the top end of that monthly fair value gap. So again, from 1.06 I would love to be a buyer somewhere between 1.071 and 1.680 if price allows itself, if we're looking at our kill zones and our time frames, to trade back into this zone right here. And then at that point, we'll see what happens. Um, Based on higher time frame analysis that monthly, I would love to see price just fall over out of this zone. I would love to see price just fall over out of the zone and continue to go down long term. I think that's what we're going to get. I think that's the play. And I guess if you were long term swinging this, um, 778, that's a 50 pip stop loss. I mean, if you have one standard lot down, your stop loss would obviously go above here, and that's like 100 pips. So you'd risk like maybe $1,000 to make 4,000, like a 1 to 4, or $100 to make $400, that type of thing. Um, for me, I am not going to do that. But if I was long term swinging this, or if I was a big bank or hedge fund institution, I might only be trading off the daily, weekly, and monthly time frames. So that might be a reason why you would do that. But the same stuff plays out on every time frame, right? So again, grab a liquidity, take out a swing low or a break of structure, and um, form a fair value gap and play into it. It's just happening on a way bigger time frame. So everything that we're seeing and are dealing with on a daily basis is just lending itself to this bigger, higher time frame idea of price going down. And so that's just that gears in a clock, gears in a grandfather clock that I mentioned, that analogy. That's all we're seeing. And so sometimes you lose track of it on a day-to-day basis because we're so focused on our 5 minute or 15 minute or our 1 minute, right? That we got to remember that everything we're seeing on the bigger picture is just flowing into this bigger time frame stuff, the daily, the weekly, the monthly, right? And so whenever you see this stuff happen on bigger time frames, it'll happen slowly, it'll form slowly, but then we'll be trading on our 15-minute charts one day and we'll just get a rapid rejection and we'll be like, what's going on, right? And it's because of this bigger time frame stuff. So you always got to keep in mind of this when you're trading, especially when you're in a market that's not trending. So okay, so ultimately for Euro USD, I'd love to see prices go a little bit higher, kind of take out liquidity on these higher time frames just to go lower in the week. So what that means is for this week in particular, if we go back down to the daily, I want to see price continue to go up for this week just to take out these highs, just to fill in that fair value gap to the top end, and then form a swing low and go higher to take us out. If we don't get this and price just continues to tank, then I'll just miss the trade this week, right? But I would love to see price go a little bit higher, kind of get more traders thinking that price is going to go long, and then completely fall apart. So for this week on Euro USD, I'm going to be bearish. I'm sorry, bullish. Bullish short term, bearish. Again, don't be surprised if there's some type of crazy market event that happens between now and I'd say like March of next year that causes the euro to crash. All this stuff is connected. Um, so that's the first thing. The second, okay, so GBP USD is the next thing. So same thing. I'm not going to spend as much time on GBP USD, but the same thing. The one thing that I did notice on GBP that's kind of interesting is on the weekly time frame. Well, if we go to the monthly time frame, I didn't look this high, but we get the same setup, right? So we traded into this imbalance, right? The sell side imbalance, sell side imbalance, buy side inefficiency, right? Too many sellers, not enough buyers. We traded into this range, traded just above. Well, we didn't quite get into that second fair value gap, but traded just right into there, formed a fair value gap right there, and price is now trading into it. And it also has the room to dig a little bit deeper. It didn't go as deep into this fair value gap as we thought it would. So it just kind of tapped it a little bit. Um, if you, Daniel, if you're watching this, this would be your monthly breaker right here. This would be your a breaker. I haven't really talked about breakers a lot. I will probably eventually, but it's just another form of kind of like entries, similar to fair value gaps. But this would be your breakers. This would be an entry, a entry going short. So if you're looking at a lot of big institutions, a lot of big hedge funds, again, they're only trading off the daily, the weekly, and the like 4 hourly, monthly time frames. It's kind of those higher time frames. Like the lowest they might go is like a 4 hour, right? Because they want to capture the biggest trend. So while we're looking at this month, right, and we're kind of like trading all the little pullbacks inside of this month and the mini trends that happen, right? They're just looking at the bigger picture, right? Which is what we should be doing, because that'll kind of give us the better sense of where we're going to go for the month. But um, most of the price action is going to be on the day-to-day basis for these hedge funds and institutions. They're looking at, the daily time frame most often. So um, if we kind of zoom in here, it's going to be the same scenario over the next few months. I would say like the next 5 to 6 months, I would love to see price just fall over and really run towards. I mean, there's a fair value gap right here that was kind of filled in. There's some probably the lower end of this fair value gap is probably where we would be headed to. There's also a huge sell side. This is what I called out, I think, in one of the previous chats. We know there's going to be sell side sitting underneath this low on the monthly time frame. So that would kind of act as a target for us. Way in the future. This might not happen until like January, February, March next year. But we're going to be making our way down there probably, right? So we traded into this fair value gap right here after grabbing liquidity, breaking structure. Um, and so And so this is where we're at right now on British pound. So again, I'd like to see price kind of trade a little bit higher into this fair value gap, maybe take out the high of last week and then fall over, because we know there's going to be, anytime we see a high or a low, it doesn't matter where the high or low is at, we have to think there's going to be money sitting up here, right? We know there's going to be money the market's going to want to go get. And this is the high of last week. So we know that people are going to put their buy side, or they're going to put, buy side or buy stops over these highs. And so if we go down to the weekly time frame, there's a couple things. There's a couple draws on liquidity that I've been looking at. And the first one is going to be this imbalance right here, right? So that's sell side imbalance, buy side inefficiency. We stopped just high of that. We took the high of last week or a couple weeks ago, and then we're just shy of that fair value gap. It's really obvious. I would not be surprised if we didn't trade to that. It's just really apparent and clear. And anytime you see those stuff that's very apparent and clear, or you see like relative equal highs right below a fair value gap, or relative equal lows right above a fair value gap, that type of stuff is just very apparent. So I think ultimately we're trading up to go to that range. So if you look at the daily, we did in fact break structure, right? And we created this huge imbalance, very similar to euro and the opposite of dollar. So what I want to see here is it's a little bit more pronounced here. So I want to see price trade into this range. There's two imbalances here. There's a fair value gap here. There's a smaller one there. So I would love to see price trade to this one or this one and attack the highs till we get to that fair value gap. I'll adjust that in a second. But this fair value gap on the 4 hour time frame runs from 1.2636 to 1.23116. So it's about 50 pips. So I think we'll probably trade to that one. So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, you should see a pullback, and then the rest of the week, trading higher. So we'll be looking for that reversals anytime between, Monday, New York session, Tuesday, London and New York, or Wednesday, London and New York. And if we just don't get it, then obviously we trade, right? If this continues to fall over and go short, then maybe that was just all the entry into the fair value gap in the higher time frame we needed. But I just have a good feeling that we'll probably trade a little bit higher into that. So 4 hour. Let's see. Making this green because this is a SIBI. I'm sorry, a BISI. Buy side imbalance, sell side inefficiency. Again, a second one right there. So I'd like to see price trade into this one, but I will make a note that it could go as low as this one. So the second one starts at 1.2290 and runs to 1.221, 1.2211. So love to see price trade back in here to start the week off and then go a little bit higher. You can see, like, in the grand scheme of things, you can clearly see that this was just accumulation on a daily time frame. So would like to see that happen, and then ultimately run to this fair value gap here. So small pullback just to go a little bit higher, excuse me. And then at this point, I would love to see price kind of just fall over or fall out of this gap. There is a secondary imbalance here that I doubt price will trade all the way into. But one of those two would be, especially since we have a breaker situation here where price went up to go lower to trade, And so I think that I'm looking specifically at this zone for the week. Could get as high as here over the next couple weeks if we decide to dig a little bit deeper. I want to see where the top end of that fair value gap is at. Yeah, it looks like we're just above that. So if I go back down to yeah, it looks like we're just shy of that zone. So I want to see price trade. Yeah, I want to see price hit that fair value gap. Wait. Yes, this entire range is the monthly fair value gap. I want to see price come into this zone and give us a reason to fall over. It could go as high as here, but I'm not expecting it. If we start to see price break up and take things out, then we're just long term just trading to these zones. And just know that everything that we're doing right now is happening inside of a monthly imbalance that we expect to roll over, right? And so all we're doing is, like, when we watch those 830 NASDAQ setups, where price trades into that fair value gap after giving us kind of like the break that we're looking for, it's like we're watching just a very, very zoomed in, slow moving version of what that is, just on the bigger time frame. So all the price action that's happening right now is basically akin to when we're in our 830 setup on NASDAQ and we're looking for the entry and we see price into that fair value gap and it just dances around for a couple seconds or a couple minutes and then dies. Slow all that dancing around down and magnify it, and that's basically what's happening on these bigger time frames right now. So we're just dancing inside of a fair value gap that eventually we're going to turn around and roll short over. So we're collecting all the orders, all the imbalances in here, and really just filling this imbalance that we formed back in like August, September. Um, yeah, so it's like trends inside of trends inside of trends. And so if you're not really paying attention or looking at smaller objectives inside of everything, you will get lost. So, grand scheme of things, I want to trade a little bit higher into this zone and eventually fall over. So that's the again, same thing as Euro USD. Short term bearish, long term, I'm sorry, short term bullish. For this week, I'm only looking for probably bullish setups, but long term, still bearish until we get to our targets. Um, think all these pairs are kind of doing the same thing. Like if you look at AUD USD, I don't really trade this one. Again, AUD hasn't really hit its fair value gap. We broke structure here. There's a small imbalance right there that we think AUD will probably trade into. New Zealand dollar. I don't really look at these a lot, but yeah, kind of the same thing. There was an imbalance here that got tapped in. Maybe it'll retap it. Again, break a structure, that type of situation. So overall, long term macro, super macro view, everything is bearish, but we got to fill these imbalances that we formed over the last couple weeks and months. And so on the weekly, the daily, and basically what we should only be looking for this week is really just uh, bullish setups, because we got to fill these imbalances on these bigger time frames. So that's all it is. We're just looking, and hopefully this helps. Hopefully this kind of narrows it down to what you should be looking for this week. And hopefully, as I'm doing this, you guys are taking notes and kind of looking at the same stuff that I'm looking at. But I'm always starting on a very, very macro view. Weekly, what's our long-term trend, right? Where are we drawing for liquidity? Where's our liquidity at, right? And what are we reaching towards? And then narrow that down to the daily. By the time you do the weekly time frame, you should have a zone that's narrowed out, and then you bring it down to the daily, and that zone should get a little bit smaller, a little bit more precise, right? Maybe you find a high or a fair value gap or a gap inside of that zone. Then you narrow it down to the 4 hour. Then you narrow it down to the 1 hour. I'm not going that deep for these, but the 1 hour. And then so by the time you step to the terminal, you should have an accurate idea of where you think price is going to move to each day, right? And so you should be able to, do it for the week as a whole, right? You draw your long-term thing out, and you're just trading within that for the week. And so now that when Monday hits and Tuesday hits and Wednesday hits, now that you have your whole overall plan drawn out, you should then be able to take that idea and then look for your individual setups each day, right? Using what we taught you as far as the accumulation, manipulation, distribution that happens each day. And so you got your marching orders, and then each day you're just executing, right? And so that is hopefully this helps, and hopefully this gives a little bit of structure. I'm gonna drop this chat in the or drop this video in the chat. I don't know if I probably won't do an actual live session today, but maybe I'll try and do something midweek or towards the end of the week. And so yeah, if let me know if this helps. If they have any questions, please email me. I'm also going to try and find time probably in the month of December, because I won't be trading as much in December, to kind of follow up from everybody with the summit and get some one-on-one time with everybody, so they can you guys can just ask me any questions. We kind of see how like the progress and development's going for everybody. I'm dropping a lot of videos, a lot of content. So hopefully this stuff is resonating, and we can kind of, take this this stuff that I'm teaching you and apply it for yourselves. And it's a journey, right? Like I said in the summit, I learned everything. This is it was a 2-year process. This is a many multi-year process for me to get where I'm at seeing price action, but also just specifically learning this style of training. It was a 2-year process. So I don't expect everybody to get this overnight, but I just want you guys to be patient with me and kind of treat it like you're learning a skill set for a job, right? If you go to college for 4 years, to get a degree, you treat this like this for a year or a more year, 2 years. Like I would think everybody can learn this stuff within a year. And then, once we learned it, from there on out, it's like, okay, let's execute on it. Let's work on the stuff that makes you a better trader. Using proper risk management, not succumbing to fear and greed, that type of stuff. So hopefully this helps. And if you guys have any other questions for me, please let me know. Always text me in the chat, and go from there. Thanks. Oh, also, if there's any other pairs that you guys want me to break down, I'm only touching on the majors right now just because they're moving the most efficiently. But if there's another pair that you guys want me to break down, please let me know and I'll do that too. So hopefully this helps. Again, dollar short term bearish, long term bullish. The opposite for euro. So euro I'm short term, euro and GBP I'm short term bullish, and long term bearish. So we'll be working with that every single day. So Thanks. And again, hopefully this helps. All right. Peace.